All right. Happy Friday, everyone. What a week it has been. And we have a busy day today, so we're going to just jump right into it. The jobs number just came out here, December's numbers. This was the first kind of clean jobs report since September. Hard to believe. 50,000 jobs were added, a little below expectation of, I think, about 75,000. So not great news, but not terrible news. In additional news, how's that for the segue? For those who didn't see yesterday, our amazing colleague here happened to be invited to the White House yesterday to sit in the new media seat for the White House briefing. That would be Rachael Bade. Folks, hit the video, please.
Oh, no. Here we
come on.
I mean, Democrats have accused ICE of murder. They've said they're targeting Americans.
Oh, you can't hear me.
They told ICE to get the F out of Minnesota. This is going to stoke the fire against ICE agents. And we're talking about ICE agents right now, being concerned about them.
All right, we can end it. The video is a little hard, but I mean, first off, I want to say, Rachael, nice bright color in a sea of dark navies and grays. So you stood out, which I of course love. How was the White House, Rachael? How was the vice president? How was your time there?
I mean, look, for all the criticism the media gives, this White House in terms of access or whatever, for people who are independent journalists and doing their own thing, it's a game changer. To be able to go in and sit in the briefing, to ask questions of the vice president, this just doesn't happen in any other administration. And it very much enables sort of, a whole cottage industry, not even a cottage industry, the new economy for journalism. So that is great. I will say, I've been to the White House before, but that was my first briefing. It was, Sean. I've worked in Washington for over 15 years, and I've never done a White House briefing. But yeah, of course, I come in the first briefing. It's the vice president. It's like, oh, great. This is awesome.
Now you only have one way to go up, which is you get the man himself.
Well, I thought,
I'll push for it. Don't think
on behalf of all of us.
I will tell you, if you think about it, and I'm not trying to, but I had these I give Caroline all the credit in the world for what she's done to really democratize the room. But I remember, I won't belabor this, but back when we took over and we met with all these folks, we created Skype seats. Our idea was, not allowing the White House briefing room to be hijacked by a bunch of Beltway insiders. And how do you bring voices in? And the evolution of independent media from the time that I left to now, and what Caroline and her team has done has been fantastic, because the idea that not only, it used to be when I was press secretary, they said, here's how it goes. You start in the front row. The AP gets the first question. And by the way, the AP tells you when the briefing's over. And I was like, not going to happen. And you go down the first row, ABC, New York Times, Washington Post. And I was like, no way. My first briefing, I called on the New York Post to send a very strong signal. And then we brought in Skype questions. And again, what they've done, you got called on, you're supposed to have got called on first because the new media seat, but I assume the vice president kind of, but I think it's a real testament to what they've done.
Second's not bad. Exactly.
I mean, no. I only say that because it was I just want people to know that normally Caroline would have gone to you first, but because it was the vice president, I'm sure, there's a little bit of disconnect between how it runs, but kudos.
Yeah, with the ice breaking stuff, everything was sort of out of whack from the normal briefing.
I mean, I'll just say, also hat tip, Mondani's doing the same thing. His first briefing was new content creators. But Rachael, you made us all proud. We were all super excited. You did a great job. Your questions, two-part, were respectful but direct and fair. And so great job. And thank you to Caroline Leavitt in the White House for the invitation to Rachael. Perhaps you will be back, but great job, Rachael.
Thank you, Dan. Dan has become, somebody made a joke in our text chat that he's you're too young to be, but my stage dad on the huddle team. Send us a picture.
I was excited for you, for us. Yeah, it was great.
Okay. Well, so we're going to have some fun today. It's Friday Fun Day. We're going to be talking about these little packages that Sean sent us, surprise packages. But before we do that, let me just tell you what we're going to talk about in terms of business. On the agenda, we'll get to the White House versus Tim Walz and the new Portland situation with 2 additional people shot there. Venezuela latest. We'll talk direct payments to Greenlanders. A lot of questions about that in my brain right now. Republican renegades, 2 votes on the Hill that did not go well for the president yesterday. Three.
Yes.
What do you think of the third one?
The plaque in the Senate to recognize the officers. I don't think that goes over well with the White House website, but that's okay.
Yes, that's a good point. Although he did win on the veto veto override. We'll talk about that. And then a segment that is backed by popular demand: buying, selling, and watching. We're going to talk about politicians and whether their stock is going up and down and what we're looking for. But first, we'll do the day book. Right now, we just said we already did the jobs number here. 9:00, the Congressional Hispanic Caucus is going to be holding a press conference on Venezuela, obviously a big hot topic. We should mention this morning that it's a big day for the Supreme Court. They're going to be meeting. There is some speculation that we could see some decisions. A lot of people remembering that the Supreme Court said they would expedite the tariff decision. We could just maybe see a ruling on that. And if that goes down, it is going to be a huge news story. We talked a little bit about it yesterday, but the president will have to sort of recalibrate on that. 11 a.m., the president is going to be meeting with what I would jokingly call the actual leader of Venezuela, Marco Rubio, in the Oval Office.
But not a candidate to be the Miami Dolphins head coach. That was well played.
That's because he's going to take the Baltimore job, just so you know.
I'm just going to smile because this all goes over my head and the sports stuff. But I did see the tweet.
To his credit, he is a sports fan. He's from Miami, obviously. He actually put out a tweet yesterday that started with I don't often comment on rumors, but, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then it was the fact the Miami Dolphins fired their coach and he would not be a candidate for the job.
There you go. 1:00, the president and the vice president are having lunch. And then the big event of the day is actually at 2:30 at the White House. The president's going to be meeting with Chevron, Exxon, ConocoPhillips to talk about this investment that he wants to see in Venezuela in terms of oil. He is setting a high bar, saying that they're going to spend $100 billion and that 14 companies are coming. But the reporting indicates that while a lot of smaller companies are interested in doing something in Venezuela, the big companies that actually have the manpower to do this, they're a little wary. So they're going to be coming in, it sounds like they've already privately strategized about this, saying they want to make sure that the president is not going to, buttonhole him into making a commitment they will later regret. Sean, just a quick question on this. If you were advising one of these oil tycoons, how would you tell them to play this meeting with the president?
I don't think I think we're excited about the prospect, Mr. President. There's some logistics concerns that we have, both from an SEC perspective. We've got to be careful what we talk about with our competitors in the room. We also have to be careful in terms of infrastructure and human rights. So if you and your team are willing to work with us, we're willing. I mean, they just need to buy time and say, Mr. President, give us the opportunity to work with your team. There's some sanctions. There's some tariffs that are prohibiting, that would be costly. There's some additional sanctions that we need to get taken down. I mean, they just need to say, but.
Yeah, because look, the two big things for them is, one, they all wrote their budgets for fiscal year already, and this wasn't in it. The second is, I talked to a lobbyist for a major oil company who said the number one question the DC team is getting, if Dems get the Congress back or Trump or, Dems get the White House back, what is the risk that all of this support, federal support, gets yanked? Now you're stuck in Venezuela with billions of dollars literally in the ground and the federal backstop disappears.
Right.
Go tell your shareholders, oh yeah, we did that because that's how lawsuits happen.
So two quick things. One is, there's also a big difference between the big companies, the Exxon Mobils and whatever. I mean, Chevron's already there. There's some smaller companies. I did talk to a couple of members of Congress yesterday from Texas who said that they're the people they're talking about in the industry were very bullish. So I think there's also a spectrum of the big companies to the little companies. So if I were the White House, I'd be saying the door's open, call us, let us know what you can do, and opening the aperture on this.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I'm sure we'll see some news coming out of that, whether from them speaking to the media or from the president sort of taking a victory lap. Okay, since it's Friday again, we're going to do something fun. Yeah. Sean sent Dan and I surprise packages.
Are these gifted?
Just to be clear, I want to
go back to
what I always tell you. I am cheap and frugal. So Rachel immediately said, "Did you send me a crock pot?"
It says crock pot.
I know, but I wasn't. We had a box. We actually had a crock pot in that box. Right. And I said to my wife, "Are you using the crock pot?" And she said, "Not yet." And I said, "Can I just take it out and use the box?" So don't get excited.
All right.
No
And
cheese
this is
dip for
not
me.
regifted. You're,
Yeah.
you're
No,
telling
no
me-
regifted. This
No,
is
no
brand
regifting. All right.
new.
I've got my
Have
knife.
either of you ever regifted?
Oh, hell yeah. I
Dan,
have
are
an
you
entire-
opening yours as
I
we're
have an
talking?
entire
Yeah, I'm doing
pile,
it right
Dan,
here.
that I
I got
use.
my knife.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Tell me when you're ready so we can do it together.
Okay.
Hold
Last
on.
thing I'll say, when I got this, Sean told me to poke holes, told us both to poke holes in it so the thing could breathe.
All right, hold on. I'm trying to get this thing open.
Maybe a hamster.
All
Okay,
right.
mine is open. I'm not looking in.
All right, all right, we're gonna open. Let's
All right.
see.
Do it
I
on
think
three.
I know what it is, by the way.
Wait, do you? I'll say. Well, you.
Oh, Sean, I like the stationery. This is good stuff
Hey,
Well,
here.
I
when you-
thought it was gonna be a mug.
When you own part of a mail company.
I like it.
Here, hold it up,
It is
Rachel.
a mug. Okay.
I
Let
love
me
it.
see.
This is
Oh,
fantastic.
nice. Very
love it.
good.
You know what? Since the Giants season's over, we're gonna
Hold
take
on.
the helm.
Ready? Hold on, Dan. Let's all hold it up. Let's get a quick little. If we can get Katie or someone to take a photo. When,
All right.
once, ready?
Take a
Hold it up.
photo. Behind the scene. Who's taking it? Somebody. Cheers.
All right. So if you want to know what you're going to be getting if you sign up for our paid subscription service, perhaps you will get a coffee mug in the future.
We'll work on that. We'll
Yeah,
work
but
on
look,
that.
I actually I did this on. First of all, you guys understand. I did this on Etsy. Just
Look,
that
Sean using
sentence has
Etsy.
never happened in my
Wow.
life.
Wow.
But it actually, I give the company huge kudos. I could actually tell you who it is, but I went on Etsy and I found a company that did coffee mugs, and I was like, okay, let's do this. Hold on, let me just. I want to make sure I give them credit, but
That's good.
Yeah,
I love it.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sean.
Well, no, we got. I wanted to make sure that we started the year off strong.
Yeah.
Good.
Rachel, you can replace
yeah, by the
Dayton
way-
Flyers coffee mug now with the
I
huddle.
know.
Yeah.
I know. My family will be sad because they're all Flyers.
It's called
fans, but I'm
Cocoa
sure they'll
Black
stick.
Creations. Cocoa Black Creations. They had no idea they were getting a shout out, but
Yeah.
thank you guys for doing a great job on these.
For
Speaking of shout
advertising. Speaking of advertising, we need to
Yes.
move to let's do a quick word from our sponsor, actually.
Yeah.
Sean. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I noticed this last night. We joked about it on the show, and I'm like, I really am like, even this morning, I got my Cozy Earth t-shirt on. I've got a pair of the joggers on. Last night I switched out from the pajamas. I'm literally head to toe Cozy Earth almost every day these days. I guess that's what happens when you work from home. But the pants are fantastic. The pajamas, I told you guys the towels I bought, and all this stuff, like, I love doing it because it's like I'm paying with my own dollars using our own code. So if you do, and I know, Dan, your family loves the stuff. Rachel,
Yeah.
you're waiting for yours.
I
I'm
would
excited
say
when I get it.
follow me on Instagram around 7:30, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern tonight. Good chance you will get a photo because my wife and I tend to be on the couch and the bubble blanket is out and we are usually both
that's
in
the
our
big deal.
Cozy Earth
Yeah.
pajamas. Yeah, so stay
All
tuned.
right. Well, if you go to cozyearth.com and use code HUDDLE, you will get 20% off your entire order, and you cannot go wrong on anything when it comes to Cozy Earth. Like I said, the pajamas, the bubble blanket, I forgot that one. The sheets,
Sean,
the
it's
towels.
the playoffs. You know, Sunday night when your Patriots are playing, you're going to be in you have the Cozy Earth bubble blanket, cheering on your team.
In the pajamas with the eye mask ready. Yeah, I know. All right. Well, CozyEarth.com, huddle.
All right, guys, let's get down to business. Everybody in the chat is telling me not to drink out of this mug until I wash it. I typically would wash it, but I'm just going to do it. I hope I don't get sick. Okay.
The
The White
Chinese
House
make good products.
in the White House versus Walz in Portland. So tensions are obviously spiking on the ground in Minnesota. You've got a bunch of big protests, thousands of people turning out, and a concern about escalation there on the ground. But atop of that, 2 people, guys, were shot by Border Patrol agents yesterday in Portland. Officials there say this was a self-defense, as with the situation in Minnesota. This one against a suspected member of the gang Tren de Aragua. But that is 2 incidents in 1 week, Sean. So I guess my question is, the president, he came back to power in part because of his promise to crack down on immigration. But at this point, is some of this becoming a political liability, do you think?
Yeah, look, I mean, you saw what I said yesterday about the media, and then what you were there for the vice president's comments yesterday, which I think were totally spot on. If you are an average American that's going to work every day, coming home, and all you're doing is seeing or reading the evening news or the morning news or whatever, you would think that ICE is going out targeting innocent civilians on the street corner or at traffic stops. which is clearly not the case. And so for a lot of people, when I turned on the morning shows this morning, I was making my rounds again. Nothing changed despite the vice president's stern warnings yesterday about taking down the temperature. And so I think for a lot of Americans, they're hearing, oh my gosh, ICE is out there targeting Americans. And the White House, as much as they're going to stand by the immigration raids and law enforcement, the president has also always been very, very concerned about perception and also the death of innocent folks. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not trying to say that woman, I'm just saying that he is very sensitive to that. And so I can see them having some discussions with ICE saying, guys, you're amazing what you're doing. You're doing your job. You're enforcing it. We got your back. But let's maybe do a little bit more. Let's be a little bit more cautious on how we approach some of these stops. And I just want to be clear my position. When you interfere with a law enforcement operation, in the case of Portland, they were going after a member of Tren de Agua. So full stop. Like I'm 100% there, but I'm just saying the perception does matter in this world. And we know where the media is going to come down on this. So sometimes you have to tread a little bit more careful.
Yeah, he definitely cares about the coverage and the headlines. Dan, the White House, as we were just talking about, pushed Vance out front on this to sort of take the questions and brief reporters and scold them at times. Between that and what we saw in Minnesota with Governor Tim Walz sort of activating the National Guard, I think he ordered a day of unity and a moment of silence today for the woman who was killed. This is starting to feel a little bit like deja vu from 2024. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, look, I actually thought JD Vance did not have a good day yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I thought that at times as he kept going, he almost became angry and was almost kind of screaming at like the country. And I think the big problem for JD Vance and for the White House right now, and we have our own problems. I've criticized Democrats for kind of coming out and immediately knee-jerking to kind of paint these, deceased or the victim in Portland and not recognizing kind of what they did wrong in the situation. Is JD Vance said toward the end of the press conference, when asked about the kind of evidence in the video, quote, was she panicking when she drove into this officer, or was she actually trying to ram him? That's a reasonable conversation, right? So,
well, by the way, can I just go ahead, Dan? I'm sorry.
But my point is, I think the problem that the White House has, and this goes to your point, Sean, about the issue of the political dangers of what's happening for the White House, is they are trying, whenever there's an incident, to immediately politically define it on this kind of high ground of it is domestic terrorism. It is the outrageous coordinated left, kind of trying to destroy America, when you don't know necessarily if the facts support it. So then you get into what Tim Walz is now planting, which is we can't trust the administration, right? They have spoken immediately. Law enforcement spoke and kind of had these, what I'm going to say are political talking points. And so now the public, I think, starts to say, jeepers, what is going on? This is chaos. And that is the danger for Trump, is it looks less like Law and Order and more like just a general you-know-what show. And their numbers on immigration are already started to go down. There's a difference between the country wanting the southern border closed and bad hombres and this.
So I say a couple things. One, Daniel, I mean, this is the point I was making on the president's sensitivity to this, totally. that whether or not you're right or not, which I believe they are, when you turn on the television and see what Americans are being fed, which is that ICE is on the attack and this is like, and Portland's erupting and people are going nuts. You have to be politically sensitive to that. That's just a fact, right? Yeah. So I think they're seeing that. There is definitely that sense, whether it's right or wrong. Second thing I'd say is, and again, this goes back to, again, part of the media narrative. Tim Pool last night did a really good breakdown of the driver in slow motion and shows you the wheels of the vehicle and where the officer was standing. And it's funny because on first sight, myself included, said, oh my God, the officer stood in front of the car and here's what happened. When you actually break that down frame by frame, the officer's actually off to the other side of the car, not in front of the hood. It's when the driver turns the wheels to the right that it suddenly starts facing the other agent. And it's just fascinating because, again, when you just snap judge here's what happened, as opposed to I give Tim Pool and his team a lot of credit. You go frame by frame and you say, what was actually happening? The car gets stuck. She spins her wheels. Then she turns the wheel to the right towards the agent. I'm not saying it's intentional. I'm just saying the original narrative was the officer standing in front of the car. She guns at him or whatever, but she did turn the wheel towards him. And he then was, suddenly up, and you watch him from that back angle get lifted up off the ground and fire. I say all this not to pass judgment, but just that it's not as easy to sort of as what the first video shows and everybody coming out and saying.
But the problem is there's no nuance in the White House messaging, nor the Democrats' messaging.
See, I disagree with that, Dan, because I actually thought Vance did try to strike a nuanced message, and I thought he was semi-successful in that. I mean,
I actually thought he did a great job. I admit my bias on that, but I thought he was very calm, collective.
See, he was
this
to
is
start.
What he didn't do. He didn't call her a domestic terrorist. He said, at least once, a couple times, that he can't say what was in her heart. Did she have an intention to kill, etc.? He talked about her. I don't want to say being a victim, but almost like this sort of brainwashing of that, he feels is going on with some people who are average Americans, who's a mother with 3 kids. How does this happen? That somebody thinks it's okay to try to obstruct law enforcement. I thought he was pissed at the media, but I guess we're just used to that. So kind of just,
but he actually didn't go as far. He could have gone a lot harder on the media, and he didn't. He just said,
I didn't think he was that. I really didn't think he was
that. To me, I thought this was JD Vance auditioning for one audience, and it reminded me, in my opinion, he has had a bad couple of months. When I agree with you, he started calm, but by the end of that, he was practically screaming. And I think average people,
You know what I think yesterday was? It was an exact reflection of how the country is now. I think JD did a great job. I think Dan is good. Dan. No, but I mean,
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
He didn't, I can say this with a total straight, I thought his pitch was excellent. I thought to be honest with you, if he wanted to appease Trump, he would have gone on a lot harder about the media.
I agree with Sean.
This was not an audience one. That was JD from the heart talking about how he feels. But I'll just lastly say this. This is where the country is. You're on the right. Whatever they say is good. Whatever they say is bad is on the left. But I think, to your point, Dan, where it matters is that middle ground on every issue. Does the person that's not drawing a line in the sand every day of the week say that they like that or they didn't? I think that again, if there was a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being the president was right, she was a domestic terrorist, and the media sucked, that would have been a 10. He was pitch perfect yesterday. And I think for a lot of Americans out there, they say, you know what? He was the one guy that wasn't Kristi Noem saying domestic terrorism, or Jacob Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, saying, F ICE and go home. I actually thought pitch perfect yesterday.
I agree that I think he could have been way harder. And I genuinely felt an appeal to journalists in that room in terms of the coverage. But I digress. The polls will tell us very soon, right? Let's go to our next topic. We got to move on to Venezuela here. Machado moves in. So I was actually sitting at my kitchen table writing a story. I had just gotten confirmed that Maria Corina Machado, who is the opposition leader in Venezuela, that she wanted to come to the White House and give her Nobel Peace Prize to the president. Literally, as I'm writing this, the president tells Sean Hannity that she's coming in to the White House and that he's expecting her to do this. So let's play.
We can confirm it because Rachel texted us. I got a great scoop and a great story.
Yeah. And the best part is she's like, I'm going to do it in the morning. And all of a sudden we were all watching Hannity, and I'm like, oh
no. Yeah. And I literally I spent so many times.
Lesson learned.
Whatever. It happens.
Trump world, you go when you get it.
Let's pull up element 1. We're going to listen to him.
Do you have any plans to meet with her? And would you accept the Nobel Prize she wants to hand to you?
Well, I understand she's coming in next week sometime. And I look forward to saying hello to her. And I've heard that she wants to do that. That would be a great honor. Mm-hmm. I did put out 8 wars. 8 and a quarter, because Thailand and Cambodia started going at it again. So
I'll put the list up.
I give a quarter, so it's you put the list out as a hell of a list. But I've stopped 8 wars, and I think it's been a major embarrassment to Norway. Now, I don't know what Norway has to do with it, but that's where the committee is located, a lot of Norwegian people. And it's been a very big embarrassment to the country of Norway, whether they have anything to do with it or not. I think they do. They say they don't.
Okay.
But, you know, when you put out...
We can jump out of that. Thank you so much. So here's my take on this, and this is what I wrote in my newsletter, The Inner Circle on Substack, which you should all go read. This is about more than an award, obviously, for Machado, right? This is part of a larger lobbying campaign to sway the president into changing which dog he is backing in this fight. We know that he and the CIA have sort of come to this analysis, this belief that backing Delcy Rodriguez, who is the right hand of Maduro, as the leader would be better for near-term stability, right? But Machado, her party at least, won more than 70% of the vote during the last Venezuela election. She wants to be part of the future of Venezuela too. And that lobbying campaign has been happening behind the scenes. We've been seeing people make this pitch publicly. And now she's coming to the White House to do what is perhaps the best strategic move, which is give her Nobel Peace Prize to the president. Sean, nothing moves this man like flattery. You have to admit that. Will this make him consider changing his mind about Rodriguez?
I don't think so. And the reason is because I have a feeling that the conversation before this operation went down went to the stability of the country. Who will the military back? Who will all of these other various gang networks back? And so if you really want to do what he wants to do, which is the oil, you're trying to find the devil that you can dance with. And so I just think that he might be flattered. Maybe he gives her a position on a commission here in the United States or appoints her to some UN board. But I just don't see at this point. And remember, when you go to the Venezuelan constitution, it might not be a legitimate administration, the Maduro one, but it is in power. And the Constitution says the vice president becomes the interim until elections are called. So I think that there's got to be real, whether it's CIA or Intel analysis that says Machado can't carry this. She can't carry the military, can't carry it, and everything will fall apart. And you'll have instability. You'll have to send in troops. So this is, again, goes back to the president really understanding, like, I can't end up with a situation where I've got troops on the ground. So I need to back whatever play is going to give us what we want and give us the greatest amount of leverage to maneuver within the country.
I'll say I'm not sure that everybody was on board with this idea of her coming in because of that
well,
reason.
that's
Right.
Yeah.
But she's giving him her Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, exactly. Dan, do Democrats come behind her and like really lift her up to try to be this counter to the president sort of backing Rodriguez? How do they play this?
Well, look, part of this is the South Florida congressional delegation is in support of her. I mean, they have been...
Including Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah, well, on the Democratic side and the Republican side, they want this woman to be put in. So, look, I think the danger for Democrats is how many times have we talked about this? You can't just knee-jerk in opposition because Trump does X, so we're for Y. I think you just stay focused on making sure that you can execute this. And Sean hit the nails on the head. It's who controls the military because they control the streets. So if Machado can't do it, then you got to stick with who you have. But then, of course, it goes to, well, then when are we going to have elections? So, you know, the oil companies are resisting going in, the big ones. You have this. They're going to earn their money here if they can, you know, thread the needle.
Another thing the president said in this Hannity interview was that the U.S. will start conducting land strikes on cartels. He's kind of talked about this before, Sean. Is he serious about it? Like, is he going to start doing it, do you think?
I don't think so, because, again, this gets back to he understands where that red line is. But I think that, like, drone strikes, extraditions, all that kind of stuff, fair game, boots on the ground, no. So there's a spectrum here that I think he could easily, you know, drop tomahawks in from Navy assets, drone strikes. But I think that it's sort of like that might be the water's edge.
Yeah, I also think you got to remember what just happened. You know, the stories are now coming out that the mission last Saturday was not perfectly clean, that the pilot flying one of the main helicopters got shot in the leg 3 times, was pretty badly wounded. He survived. But every time you put assets over the air, other than, as Sean says, drones that are unmanned, you run the risk. Some helicopter or some, troops, Navy SEALs or whatever, get killed. The equation changes.
Let's move on to our next topic related, another foreign policy issue, direct payments to Greenlanders. This topic really sort of perplexes me because the administration is reportedly considering sending some payments to residents of Greenland to woo them to secede and join the U.S. We're talking between $10,000 a person and $100,000 a person. Look, I get that there are not a lot of people who live in Greenland, but the headline of sending checks to foreigners over Americans who are obviously still struggling with inflation. Sean, in what world is this a good idea? What am I missing?
Well, first of all, again, I think that's one idea floated. And my guess, as we've talked about before, is that if you talk about invading Greenland being the one extreme, I have a feeling that there's a lot of people throwing ideas to the president. What if we tried to buy them off? What if we tried to do that? So I take it at that. This is not an official White House position. So let's just be clear at what it is. It's
not on record. It was background sourcing.
Correct. And I guarantee you there's a lot of people using the media to throw ideas out at the president. So I'll throw another one out there that a really high-level healthcare executive gave me last night, which is the president's been a big fan of tariffs. He's been going after prescription drug prices, and this very smart healthcare executive said to me, guess what company is headquartered in Denmark? Lilly. Or is it Novo Nordisk? I'm sorry. Yeah. Novo is located. 70% of Novo Nordisk's sales are to the U.S. The entire GDP of Denmark is dwarfed by the company of Novo Nordisk. So why don't you tariff Novo Nordisk GLP-1 drugs and buy off Denmark that way?
Well, he may have a riot at Mar-a-Lago if weight loss drugs are tariffed.
No, you got plenty. You got plenty of other options there.
All right.
But I'm saying, look, I think, but that's what this is. This is an idea that got thrown out there to say, hey, maybe instead of invading the country, here's an idea. And I think so there's going to be a ton of these. And I think you'll see more ideas getting floated out there like the one I just got from this healthcare executive.
I did wonder if this was an attempt at damage control to try to pull back the talk
about
military.
Military but also, this is a lot cheaper of an idea. Why don't we do it this way? There's 20,000 people live in Nuuk, right? So do the math on that. It's a heck of a lot cheaper than a massive operation.
It's still not going to play well.
I mean,
I know it's never going to happen. Dan, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, it's just all insane. And I think the problem for Trump, the problem for the White House is, to be serious here, is you have more and more Republicans, both on the record and off, saying we got huge problems with this, whether it's disrupting NATO or like we don't fully see like how you can pull this off. The idea that it's like we'll buy them off, we'll invade. You're just throwing darts at the board. But like, Sean, to be speculating in public about a country or a territory that is not for sale by the country that has it, that is an ally of the United States, right? That Great Britain went on the record, this is a terrible idea. They don't often criticize us. Here's the one thing I'll say. And look, as I've said to you guys before, I think that at some point we need to start looking out for ourselves. China and Russia are strategically positioned to really pose threats to us. So either we're going to start taking our national security seriously, both in terms of military positioning and in terms of what we need in rare earth minerals, or we can all start learning to speak Mandarin. But those are basically the two choices. And so everyone who wants to have these conversations about, this isn't the nice way to do it. And when Britain is willing to step up and defend itself, they get a seat at the table. Sean, let me just ask you a quick question, though. Let me just ask you.
Point, Dan, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, hold on. I just want to be clear. So every major power has the right to go take what they think should be theirs. I just want to be clear about that.
That's not
because that's what you're saying.
No, I'm not. No, what I'm saying is we're talking about offering them money. We're talking about, do we have a right to say, hey, guys, you can't defend yourselves. You have something that's valuable to everyone, and you're going to call us when China and Russia. So, yes, we should have a discussion what that looks like. There's a reason that putting space bases there right now, because they can't defend themselves.
But it's there. That's the point. It's there.
You're going to the extreme and saying, should we go in and take them? I don't support that.
I'm not saying that. The White House is.
I do think that
Stephen Miller did.
And the president having looking at all the options that are available, whether to buy them, to have a strategic relationship with them greater than we do now, is smart.
I'm sure we're going to keep talking about this for a while, so we'll return to it in future days. But let's move now to the president's sort of embarrassments on the Hill yesterday. 2 votes, although Dan points out 3. He lost 5 Republicans in the Senate who voted with Democrats on the war powers measure to sort of limit future military action. And then in the House, when it came to the Obamacare subsidies, he lost 17 House Republicans.
And not just frontliners.
Well, I was going to say a lot of frontliners, though, too, which
But,
again shows how potent this is in swing districts where you have majority makers sort of defending. Dan, you can do a little bit of a victory lap here if you want.
Oh, I won't.
We made bets about this yesterday, but
I'll be humble.
So,
yeah, no. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I mean, look, I just think you go back to the Epstein files. You now have this. I think we're just talking about Greenland, and that war powers resolution was on Venezuela. But, as you look on the chessboard here, you have, people like Josh Hawley going on the record saying, I have a problem with this. That's not Susan Collins. And so I think it does show the president, like, there is some trouble out there still. His own party is beginning to express themselves here and there. It's not a lot. He's still the 800-pound gorilla. I'd still bet on him versus anybody else in a Republican primary. But he's weaker today than he was 3 months ago. There's no doubt about it.
He's not taking this news well. Sean, did you want to say something very quickly?
I'll just say quickly. I will say that in each of these cases, like on the ACA, I think it was not a good vote. For like, I'm personally opposed, but those folks are all in competitive districts.
Not all. Some of those are red ruby areas. The 3 guys, I can bring it up.
All right. On the War Powers Act, again, it was even the vice president comment in the briefing room yesterday. These guys had philosophical issues. This was not a rebuke of Trump, and that's a big difference of a vote. Like they literally.
How do you square that?
No. I'm just saying this was not some massive Trump policy that it was like, hey, the big beautiful bill. This was a philosophical difference on the use of military force, which I disagree with, how they're reading of it. And on the ACA, this was a bunch of people protecting their hides in district where they had high percentage of people that were on the exchanges.
Let's bring up. I want to bring up the president's Truth Social reaction to this, because he went after the 5 Republicans who voted for the war powers to advance the war powers resolution. One of them was Susan Collins, and by the way, he said these people should not be reelected. Collins is in a blue state, running in Maine, facing down a very difficult election. If I had another question at the press briefing, I was going to ask Vance about this. The president going after his former colleagues and whether he supports the reelection of Susan Collins. Sean, this is just the president blowing off steam, right? He's not serious.
Correct. Because at the end of the day, Susan Collins is key to winning or maintaining a Senate majority, right? And look, I think that it was a bad vote because I don't think anyone in Maine was sitting around having a discussion about this. But and as the vice president said yesterday, it was philosophical in terms of their interpretation of military action. We are not invading countries. We went in and did a Department of Justice extraction to enforce an indictment at its core. So for these guys to take it to that, so look, I get he's pissed because he wanted it. But at the end of the day, the vote's not going anywhere. The vote in the House isn't going to the Senate, and the vote in the Senate's not going to the House. So, I wouldn't lose any sleep over it.
And go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, I just have to say this was absolutely a vote against Trump. It was specifically on Venezuela and the affirmative the proactive initiative that the Trump administration has taken. And I disagree in Maine that this is not an issue. Susan Collins is not a dummy. She knows exactly where the wins are in her state on this. And I just watch. If he ramps up in other places, I think you're going to see another vote come up.
And I will say, notably, when it comes to the president's power, apparently some members on the Hill saw what he did to the Senate Republicans in terms of that Truth Social. They thought twice about overriding these 2 vetoes. They were supposed to override these 2 vetoes, 2 bills that passed, with flying colors. And all of a sudden, they can't override the president's veto because people from the admin were apparently stalking around the Hill, warning folks. But so he still has some juice.
Totally.
Obviously, very much so. Okay, let's do this final segment. I'm really excited about this. I love talking about the politicians in Washington or around the country and whether their stock is going up or down. Let's start with who we are buying. Who wants to go first, Dan or Sean?
I'll say I'm going to buy two people this week. I agree with Dan earlier. I think JD Vance, in terms of his prospects for 2028 and the Republican nomination, did a great job, not just yesterday, but all week long. And then I got to give kudos to Bobby Kennedy and his team on what they did on the food pyramid in particular. Great job to Bobby, Dr. Oz, McCary, and team. Like it was really good. And so a big win on those two fronts.
Yeah.
I am buying Josh Shapiro. He is gearing up. He is focused. He has kind of stayed out of some of this, stuff in Washington right now. We talked about the chaos. I think this is where being a governor and not being there right now. Gavin Newsom's been sticking his nose into everything. I'd be buying Josh Shapiro right now.
I would say the most obvious one is Marco, but it's too obvious. So I'm going to pick another one that is really going to piss off Sean. And this doesn't mean that I agree with this person, but I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to pick Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly has long had what I would call a vanilla politician problem. He has always had this amazing resume, right? Former astronaut. How cool is that? Helped nurse his wife, who was a congresswoman shot in the head, to be able to walk again, relearn how to talk again, and just be a supportive husband. But he didn't become Kamala Harris's running mate for one reason, and that is because he's too boring. And he didn't perform well. And I would say that in this little tiff he's got going on with Hegseth at the Department of War, he is like really leaned into this. And I have been really surprised to see Mark Kelly come to life in a way that I have not seen him come to life on Capitol Hill. And I think that'll do well for him with primary.
Did you see the Jon Stewart interview with him?
I don't think I did.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. You might change your opinion. He got smoked by Jon Stewart because Jon Stewart went after him and said, you put out the seditious 6 video. And he said, yeah, da, da, da. And then Stewart says to him, are the boat strikes legal? And he says, well, there's a lot of gray area there and there's a lot of concern. And Jon Stewart looks at him and goes, do you see what I'm saying to you? You just sowed a ton of discontent into all of these sailors aboard ships. And he went, well, and he goes, that's the point. He goes,
well, I get that argument.
And so my point is,
I don't know that Democratic primary voters see it the same way.
Oh, no, right. I mean, if you want to talk about like from the left saying, hey, wow,
that's what I mean. That's what I mean.
That when he gets his reduction in rank,
I think it's a badge of honor, for him with the left.
Agree.
I don't know.
Not saying I agree with his tactics by any means, but I just feel like he's become a different politician.
I will just say, Rachel, just flag for everyone out there. I believe one of the reasons he wasn't chosen was there may have been a vetting issue.
Ooh.
Oh.
So maybe I just bought bad stock.
No. Look, in today's age, who knows?
Remember what we always say, don't take financial advice from me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do selling. Let's go quick. Sean.
The mayor of Minneapolis.
That
was disqualifying. It may help him to some extent with certain parts of the party, but you just can't do what he did.
I'm going to sell two things. I'm going to sell. I would have sold Fry, so I'm with Dan on that. But I'm going to sell CBS and Politico. CBS had a horrible week. They released the name of that ICE agent last night. Tony Doepel, who we talked about, had a horrible first week on air. And then this morning, if you haven't seen my social media, Politico released a Google Doc showing all the sources they use and their passwords, by the way, which I helpfully put out in public for them. So if you want to go to my social media, you can see the sources that they consider smart to use, none of which are conservative except for Fox. So there's no Daily Wire, there's no Daily Caller, there's no Daily Signal, there's no Breitbart. So again, you can go to Instagram or Twitter to see the internal documents that Politico mistakenly allowed to be out, and you might want to sell them as well. Or if you want a free password to some publications before they change them.
Pay for them? Gosh,
yeah.
Bad. As somebody who used to work there and left a few months
if you had those passwords
at this point, but I will let Sean's comments stand. I'm going to sell Tulsi Gabbard over at DNI because there is some reporting. There's some reporting. We've seen a couple places now, Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, that she was kept out of the planning for the Venezuela capture of Maduro. I mean, she's the head of DNI. Like, she should be in a lot of this stuff, you would think, or at least in the loop.
But you saw that yesterday. Did you not? I mean, again, you were
there.
there.
Vance is close with her. I understand that. I think
but
one
he
time was
said that's
asked
not
if-
true. I mean, again, when Vance, I think Vance, like his team explained every move they made, like what for security reasons and for, I mean, like what was going on with him. He came out pretty forcefully yesterday regarding
100%,
Tulsi.
but I would expect that. I would absolutely
Okay.
expect that. He's friends with her. I mean, at one point he was asked like, who are his favorite Dems at one point a few years ago. Like she was one of the people. And I get that. But like, you know, a lot of people were tweeting her old tweets saying we should never go into Venezuela, et cetera. It took her, 5 or 6 days to comment on this operation.
Meanwhile,
publicly.
she's posting
And
photos
then-
from the beach.
well,
Meanwhile.
I didn't see that. But you have also seen, like, the reporting is that aides have joked that DNI stands for "Do Not Invite." And look, I have talked to someone pretty damn inside, who I'm not saying she's going anywhere. I'm not saying she's getting fired, but like, look, like some people are fans of hers. JD is one of them, and then some people are not. That's my only point. Okay, what are you watching real quick? We got to go to questions.
Two things quickly. One, what's happening in Iran, it is remarkable. For those who didn't see, Trump kind of hedged on intervening. We talked about that earlier in the week. But does Iran fall? Is there some big movement? The second thing I'm watching, Gavin Newsom yesterday is now going to try to sell California derangement syndrome to take what is perceived as a weakness, which is the kind of homelessness and housing costs and the economy of California, again, perceived, and flip it into a strength. I am really curious if he can pull this off. If he does, that's a big Achilles that he has covered.
I agree with Dan on Iran. I mean, I think we're on the same page on Jacob Fry and Iran. I would say the other thing I'm looking for domestically is affordability. The president, as you've seen, has really started to talk or drip out some of these issues on mortgage, first-time ownership, and talk. And I think there's going to be between now and February 24th, which is the State of the Union, you're going to see drips and drabs of additional policies that come out, whether it's prescription drugs or housing, on how they specifically can address like issues of affordability that make sense to younger Americans in particular.
I'm going to say that I'm watching Vance's announcement that DOJ is going to be creating this sort of high-ranking position to investigate.
Oh, by the
fraud.
way, kudos to you for that. I'm glad you called that one out. This idea of a fraud czar at DOJ, I'm a huge fan.
Rachel, continue.
I'm continuing. We got to get to questions, but no, I just think they're going to nationalize this. To that question, you know, we talked earlier this week about whether this would be sort of a narrow Minnesota issue, but Republicans are not going to obviously let it stay that way. So, and guys, I know there's a lot of comments about Iran in the chat. We're going to talk a lot about that next week. I know there's interest, but let's go to some questions right now. Bring in our first person.
Okay.
Oh, okay. We'll do this. We'll do a question here, but then we'll take one from video because today is Friday. So I have your camera ready. Okay. So Kamala managed to garner 74 million votes by flooding the airwaves for 60 some odd days. It was effective. According to Jim Jordan, Trump's message of success has to be delivered to the American people relentlessly. Should Trump follow this tact for the midterms?
I'm not sure I agree with the premise that her flooding the airwaves was effective. I think Kamala's ads, I mean, look, I actually would say respectfully, Victor, that Trump's success was because he had a message on the economy. He could contrast because his first 4 years was significantly better economically than the Biden 4 years. And he had, whether it's no taxes on tips or no taxes on Social Security, he had, you know, kind of tangible ideas that people felt like that could impact me. And Kamala was very kind of esoteric and small when it came to the economy. So I think, you know, look, everyone always says message. We need a better message. At the end of the day, Sean always says this, you either feel like your life is improving or it's not. And somebody telling you how you should feel usually doesn't work very well.
The president certainly has enough money that he can flood the airways if they do sort of narrow in on a message here on this that they really want to pump out. I mean, the president has been raising a ton of money. So in terms of funding like ads and stuff, he could do that.
Yeah, look, I agree with Dan on. I'm not sure I agree with the premise that I mean, she would have gotten X number of votes regardless, just because of the country that we live in today, and I'm not sure that it was effective. That being said, and remember, her whole thing was she didn't go on certain podcasts. She staged call her daddy to the tune of several $1 million. I will agree with the premise that the president and all politicians, frankly, every one of them needs to understand that you cannot wait 6 weeks out of an election and go up with 1,000 to 2,000 points of television and cable and think somehow that's going to win an election. It is a 24/7, 365 new media landscape where you got to be going to independent media, podcasts, your own content. You look at someone like an Eric Schmidt of Missouri. The guy's phenomenal. He's embraced this wholeheartedly. He's always doing videos, talking to himself, really bringing you inside. He is everywhere all the time. Ron Johnson's very similar. I mean, that's what you need to be doing. So it's not just President Trump. It's everyone running for office on the Republican side.
Yeah.
Let's bring in a viewer.
Hey.
Hi guys, how are you?
Welcome.
Great. I'm so happy to talk to you guys again. I love you guys, you know that. Rachel, you are like the boss. I'm so happy with what you have going on here, and I love all three of you.
Love to hear it.
I did want to kind of preempt. You said you guys wanted to discuss Iran next week, but I did have one basic question that's been on my mind. I make no mistake, Dan and Sean know this. I'm Israeli American. I make no qualms here that I am not a fan of the regime, and I am so supportive and just amazed with what's happening there on the ground and the people who are trying to fight back. But my question is kind of like with the coverage that Iran has been getting. And want to say the lack thereof coverage that they've been getting. And I want to give like a pass because so much stuff has happened the last week. I mean, every day there's like a big new news story, and I understand that totally. But I have a problem with companies like the BBC, for example, who took, I think, 7 days before they even did their first story on the protests that are going on. I think that they're, especially because of the last 2 years with Iran in the mainstream headlines and with Israel, Gaza, like, I think it's just such a disservice and like just a slap in the face. So everybody who has been talking about Iran and the Middle East and all the conflicts that's been happening since October 7th and how connected Iran was with that, why is it because there's just too much news going on, or is there a deeper reason why they're not covering this like they should be?
Who wants to take that? You want me to start with that?
Rachel, you're the reporter. Why don't you start?
I was going to say, I mean, we should first look at our own coverage here. We haven't touched it yet. We've definitely talked about it. But yeah, I think I would say a couple of things. One is waiting to see how real this is. And clearly it is, right? Somebody asked me about this a while ago, and my gut reaction, without having followed it too closely at that point, was like, is this for real? Like, is it really going to happen this time? Like, how many times have we talked about this? But I agree with you. I mean, obviously, like Iran, like anything that happens there in terms of the regime falling is like huge news. So perhaps we should have been talking about it more this week. What do you think, Sean and Dan?
I mean, well, look, we've texted about whether we should, and that this is an editorial issue of, do we stick to 5 topics? Do we, go to 7 or 8? And how do you structure this? Look, we have wondered, and I don't think this is a rocket science, is the CIA and the Israeli intelligence on the ground helping to facilitate this, right? Which obviously would not be a good story nationally on behalf of the protesters if it looks like this is really the Americans, because the as you know, Haley, the Iranian government will say it's us against them, right? You're either an Iranian or you're an American, and that is not the best message, as we were just talking about, that you probably want to have. It's a great question why the rest of the world is not. I do think it's probably, there's just, the circuit board can only handle so much. There's only so many space at the top of a, newspaper, rhetorically speaking, to put in. But I was taken aback that Trump yesterday kind of poo-pooed getting involved. He had been leaning in, like, if we need to, we will come and defend the protesters. Maybe that message is not a good one, but I'm so fascinated. I feel like any day I could, turn on the news and the Shah could be in Moscow, and that's the end of, like, there it is.
So, Haley, I think everything that we just said, yes. And then secondly, I would say there's another issue, which is that, like, it's twofold. One, there's not a lot of reporters that know what the hell's going on. And so therefore, and you go, well, who are you? It's just a fact. I mean, the way that the newsrooms and whatever are spread, you've got 1 or 2 foreign correspondents, and where are you going to place them and what's going to happen? You got Venezuela, Greenland. Like what is it that you're going to talk about in your 60 seconds today? And then secondly, Americans just generally have not given a ton of concern about foreign policy skirmishes until they reach, DEFCON 1. So that's just a reality of news. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just telling you that like when there's major skirmishes overseas, it takes, we wait until it's a big deal and then we cover it for a day and we move on. I would say that I bet you, and the same thing's true with what was going on in Gaza for a while, that there are publications that are very focused on it, that are niche-y, and then there are broad ones that just don't touch it. And as we, and I think a lot of the American media look at issues as it rises, but right now there's also a lot of like, to Dan and Rachel's point, like what is the answer? Like, I don't know. Like, is there a plausible replacement for the regime and kind of in a Venezuela way? Is there anyone that actually could take control and have the forces? I mean, like, there's a lot of
Sean, let me ask you and Rachel something. If you're the White House, do you want this in the headlines? Meaning,
no.
Right.
No.
You've got Venezuela. We talked about Greenland. So, look, he's the big megaphone. Trump speaks, it becomes news, it becomes a headline. I almost wonder if the White House is trying to keep this out of the headlines, because if the conversation becomes they're close, the world needs to do something. Now it's like you got Venezuela, right? We've got, Marco Rubio can only focus on so many places at once.
There's a different, the funny part about the thing about your question, Dan, that's so interesting is in Venezuela, that was proactive. We went in, took out Maduro, want to take it. In Iran, like, you don't want to own that hot potato. You don't know where it goes. And that's the difference, is that there's no amount of planning that can tell you how that thing ends.
Right. I just want to mention also, like, I don't know how I feel about whether we should get involved or not, even Israel. Like, I do believe, I'm not naive enough to think that there's not something going on the ground, behind the scenes from Mossad, CIA. But I don't know if it's the right decision I don't think it's the right decision for America to get involved, because I feel like Iran has tried so many times, so many protests, so many different times to try and get their own government top. They're doing it on their own. We just need to support them, in any way we possibly can, because there's no denying that if the IRGC falls, this is going to be the most groundbreaking shift in Middle East politics in the last 50 years.
Haley, is this dominating the Israeli media?
100%. 100%.
It is. Okay.
But see, that's kind of what I was going at, right? So
I can get information about it. My dad either watches Israeli news or CNN. Like, it's one of those two things. And CNN, unfortunately, I've been waiting. I've been hoping and waiting for them. I think last night in the night hours, they finally said something.
Interesting. Well, we'll talk more about it next week. We'll make you.
I know you guys are awesome. I have
thank you for coming in. We really appreciate it, and thank you for watching. Let's do a YouTube super chat question. DOJ should already have a search warrant for, what is that?
Walz.
Oh, Walz. Okay. Is that his? Oh, okay. There's just panty drawer?
Yeah, that's,
I think it's a snark reference.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Guys, you can't joke with me. I'm blonde.
Well,
I've told this to Sean and Dan.
Well, look, I think it's also a Mar-a-Lago, they what FBI did to President Trump's home in Florida. I look
to Melania's drawer. Let's be clear.
Well, that's actually a good point. But I was trying to be protective, and I actually probably went the wrong way. Look, I think that if Tim Walz caught it's inappropriate. I think that, like, had this week not turned out tragically the way that it did, Tim Walz would be, in a conference room with a ton of lawyers right now, and he still might be. And I also believe it's going to span a lot more than Tim Walz. There's no way this level of fraud was perpetrated without a lot more people knowing about it. So I would, and with the vice president's announcement yesterday on this fraud czar at DOJ, I'd be very concerned if I had any knowledge of this, whether you live in Minnesota or anywhere else.
Yeah,
okay.
I agree with Sean. I think Walz is not the last that we're going to hear about this and him and liability.
Yeah.
Let's take one more question from Max. Still think still think Trump would strike Iran. Oh, this is the same topic we were just talking
that's
about.
right.
Overtly, given the reports that the IRGC was killing protesters last night after the internet and phone lines were cut. Yeah.
This
was
is
gonna
the
say,
problem. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, the problem is what Sean just said, which is, I mean, what are you going to do now? Like, does the Navy or the Air Force circle over Tehran? I mean, first off, the Iranians aren't going to just lay down and let us do this. So they will try to stop our military interference. You now run the risk that you kind of start to own it, right? Like, or the headline is, we interfered and lost, which Trump will not like. No US president would. So I don't know how, and this is bedeviled going back to what was it called? The Spring Revolution or whatever that was during the Obama era. I know Hillary
The
Clinton.
Arab Spring.
Yeah, the Arab Spring. Like, how much do we lean in knowing that we're not the most popular people on the street there? So it is a great question.
Yeah, I think that, look, I'll just put a pin in this by saying I think that you don't want to, you start firing missiles and you start to own it. So one, you get the imprimatur of the US is influencing this. Number one. Number two is, the break it, you own it. I wouldn't want, I mean, I think the president last night with Hannity was trying to protect the protesters by saying, we've told them and we've warned them. But at the end of the day, this is one time when I think he's going to be told, like, he doesn't want to go there. No one wants to go there, just to be clear. It's not a Trump thing. I don't think anyone wants to get involved. What's the Princess Bride thing? No one wants to get involved in a land war in Asia. I think that that's very similar here. Like, just do not touch this.
Guys, that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for coming in. Sean, did you have something you want to flag before I do?
A couple of things. Number one, thank you guys for everybody who went to the DC huddle yesterday, signed up for our newsletter. Unbelievable how many of you either want to spend time with Dan or Rachel, because we got a lot of people that signed up for our premium subscription. And I would put in one other word, which is, if you want to be part of that, that's awesome. We'd love to have the conversation, especially with people who want to be off camera. But also, like, just thank you for supporting this. Like, if there's a lot of people who go out there and just want to help us do this and enjoy it. And so if you can do the $10 a month or $100 a year, it just helps, that we've got some great folks behind the camera that are making this work for us. We appreciate our sponsors, but it costs money. So when you support the show, you're helping us do this. So thank you for everyone who's doing that, signing up at the DChuddle.com for the premium subscription. Obviously, everything else is free. So I appreciate everybody who's shared this. Shared the links with people, signed up for the premium and everything. But tonight at 6, I had Tim Parlatore on the other day. And at the last question I asked him was about this spat between Dan Crenshaw, Congressman Dan Crenshaw, former Navy SEAL, and Sean Ryan, who have been going at it. Because Tim, I randomly saw an Instagram post from Dan Crenshaw where he showed all these legal documents and one of them had Tim's name on it. So I asked him about it. He told me Sean Ryan's side. Tonight, I get Dan Crenshaw's side of what's going on between Sean Ryan and Dan Crenshaw, the whole show, Dan Crenshaw. And so if you are interested in this, plus, I mean, Dan's a pretty hardcore badass. He is a Navy SEAL.
He's a Dan. He's a Dan.
He's a Dan. Good point. He is very sacrificed for our country tremendously. And I have a ton of respect for the guy and getting his take on Venezuela. In particular, he grew up in South America, spent a lot of time in Venezuela. So we have a great conversation ahead at 6 o'clock tonight.
All right, guys, we will be back on Monday. Thanks for joining in.
Thank you, guys.
Enjoy Wild Card Weekend.
Go Pats.